Yes. Any disruptive technology which we have talked about? Bhanuka, can you remember? We showed you videos also. You don't remember? Right. So we talked about several disruptive technologies, right? So I'm not going to repeat each and every one of them, but here we have specially highlighted this special technological advancement called Google Glass, and you saw how applications of Google Glass have enabled better business procedures and better communication, right? How convenient it is, especially for people who cannot use their hands while they are on job, how they are benefited by these kinds of innovations, right? So we showed you two video clips on this, and we highlighted several other disruptive innovations and technologies as well. So then we moved on to talk about the impact of electronic communications on traditional business, right? When it comes to this impact of electronic communications on traditional business, we told you that how many businesses at this point are reviewing the benefits of technology, what sort of technologies they can adapt to their businesses in order to obtain benefits, right? So when it comes to this, how electronic communications have transformed traditional businesses, we talked about two key opportunities that most businesses are looking at the moment in order to transform their business, right? Among many communicational applications that businesses use, there are two key opportunities that they use. So we highlighted them as one, inbound marketing, right? One thing is inbound marketing, and we told that this is actually driven by the concept where the customer initiates this contact, right? It is a pull driven mechanism or a pull mechanism where customers can actually specify what they need, and according to the understanding of what customers need, right? The marketing efforts of professionals are directed to deliver those needs of the customers, right, through online platforms, right? So they seek for the preferences and buying patterns of customers, and based on that, their marketing efforts are directed towards those customers. Then also another important trend that we talked about when it comes to how these electronic communications have changed traditional businesses, the other one was mobile commerce, right? We told that now the percentage of people who use the mobile for their e-commerce activities, right, have become increasing over the past, right? We showed you some research, and we told you that through research it has been found that 80 times of mobile time was in apps rather than the browser, and also when it comes to comparison between desktop and mobile users, we can see that there's a growth in the mobile usage among people across different countries. This is something which is happening globally, not in a single country, right? We also related that to you. And we showed you the percentage change of how the spending on mobile advertising has changed in businesses, right? When it comes to through 2015 to 2019, how there has been a change in the mobile ad spending done by businesses, right? That also you can see that there's an increase in the spending, so that the mobile commerce. So all these things put together, we told that have paved way for the concept of mobile commerce to become more popular among consumers as well as businesses. Right? So then, I think we stopped here last day, right? The on a share of demographic audiences by the different platforms that they use. The users who use mobile only platform, multi-platform, and desktop only platform, and we related this figure to you last week. So this is the last. This is where we stopped on the last day. Right? So today we have to start from there.
Miss?
I think you have, hello?
Hello, Miss.
Yes.
There's a problem is when they click on the link, some of the students are being directed to some other meeting.
Other meeting.
Yeah, they
So
are
did
not
you,
directed to this.
then which meeting are they directed to?
The previous one we had day before yesterday on Tuesday, Miss.
How come? Now, did you have the same issue as well?
No, Miss. I was directed to this directly, but some of them are being directed to some other one.
So maybe they are clicking the wrong link, no? So ask them
I
to,
sent the link, Miss.
yeah. So
That
please ask
link.
them to use that meeting ID which I have provided. I have provided a meeting ID there. If they use that meeting ID, they should be directed to this particular meeting room, this particular lecture.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we'll start off with today's lecture until they are joining, right? Uh, right. So today we are going to start off with what is the difference between digital business and e-commerce, right? So we have talked about the concept of mobile commerce, right? We have talked how technologies have transformed businesses. Now today we are going to introduce you to the concept of digital business and e-commerce, right? So first let's look at what is the difference between these two. So here the first point says the rapid advancement of technology and its application to business has been accompanied by a range of new terminology and jargon. What do you mean by jargon? Jargon are actually special terms or special words that are being used in a particular context, right? So when it comes to this technological domain, right? When it comes to this particular subject domain, there are some special terminology or special words that we use, right? So here it has been related that certain jargon such as ECRM. Now we talked about ECRM during your MIS lecture series as well. The customer relationship management aspect is being done via digital means, right? And also we talked about e-retailing, right? E-retail is another such jargon or a term that has been used with the rapid advancement of technology. So what do you mean by e-retail? It is when retail businesses are when they are moving to the online platform or when retail are done using digital technologies or digital platforms, right? And e-procurement, once again a concept which we have talked about in MIS as well, right? So there are certain these kinds of special jargons which are being interchangeably used, right, with the advancement of technology. So even though for a business, right, those terminologies or labels are not important from an organizational perspective, right? They are convenient in defining the scope of the changes we are looking to make within an organization. That means now, although there are these kinds of several terms, right, several new terms which are coming to play, what is important is not these labels, right? Rather, these terms make it convenient for the businesses to define the scope of change that they are looking to make within their businesses. That means now, if you have an idea about these kinds of terms, it is helpful for businesses to get an idea of what sort of digital or technological change are we going to apply. Is it something based on e-retailing, or is it based on e-procurement, or are we going to transform our business in the customer relationship management aspect? Likewise, when you know these terminologies, it makes it convenient for businesses to decide the scope, right? Decide the boundaries of the change that the business is looking to make within that organization using these new communications, right? That is what the first 2 points explain. Then the next point says, managers within an organization need to agree and communicate the digital transformation they are proposing through using digital technologies to employees, customers, and partners. So that is quite self-explanatory, I think. That means now within a business, right, when they have decided to make certain digital transformations in the business, the managers and the responsible parties, they need to communicate those transformations which they are hoping to make to their employees, the customers, and other partners, business partners, or other stakeholders who are a part of their business, using, once again, technological communications or digital communications, right? So that is what the first slide talks about. If we move on, what is e-commerce? Right now, in order to understand the difference between digital business and e-commerce, first of all, you have to know what is e-commerce or electronic commerce, right? When we first say this word e-commerce, right, the first thing that comes to your mind is what? What do you understand when we say e-commerce? Yes, anyone? What do you understand by the term e-commerce? Yes? So can you put on the chat what you understand by the term e-commerce, someone?
It's purchasing or selling goods through the internet.
Okay, that is one idea. Any others? Right. So one idea is purchasing goods and through uh, electronic medium or digital medium, right? So that is one idea. So then, any other ideas so far? No one? Right. So the basic understanding usually is that e-commerce is the buying and sale of goods online, right? So far. But now we are going to a more advanced definition of e-commerce, because it is not just limited to retail purchases that companies do through platforms such as Amazon, right? It also refers to all electronically mediated transactions between an organization and any third party it deals with, right? All electronically mediated transactions. This term is very important, right? So when it comes to all electronically mediated transactions, right, that means not only financial transactions such as buying and selling of goods online, right? Also non-financial transactions such as customer support and requests for further information, right? Maybe you are asking for a price of a certain product on a certain business which provides an online website, maybe through the social media platform, right? You are asking for information on price, right? Sometimes maybe you're asking for information on certain items, whether they are available in stock, right? Maybe you are seeking for after sales support, right? So all those non-financial nature transactions also, it comes under electronic commerce or e-commerce, right? So that is why this point says customer support and requests for further information would also be considered to be part of e-commerce, right? Then also this point, next point says there is an annual growth rate of around 10 to 20% in e-commerce sales in most countries. And now if we look at the next figure, figure 1.4, now this figure depicts the top 10 countries ranked by retail commerce sales, right, during 2018 and 2019. Now you can see that the highest retail e-commerce have been recorded in China. Now if you look at the percentage change, 27.3%. So likewise, if you go on comparing between different countries, you can see that at least there has been something between 10% to 20% change of this e-commerce spending, and this change is incremental, right? There has been an increase in the e-commerce sale between 2 consecutive years, right? That is why this point says there is an annual growth rate of around 10 to 20% in e-commerce sale in most of the countries, right? So there you can understand by looking at this figure how important this e-commerce sales have become all over the world, right? In almost every country, they have increased the e-commerce sales gradually, right? So moving on, electronic commerce is not solely restricted to the actual buying and selling of products, but also includes pre-sale and post-sale activities across the supply chain, right? So that means not only the actual buying and selling part, but also the pre-sale activities. What do you mean by pre-sale activities? What can be the meaning of pre-sale activities? Yes. So pre-sale means all those activities which occur before the sale. Like what? When you say pre-sale and post-sale, you have you should have some idea about this because we have talked about supply chain management in management information systems course. So what do you think pre-sale refers to? Yes. So it might be those activities which are relating to the upstream supply chain, maybe, you know, maybe the procurement side, the procurement aspect of the company when you're buying raw materials, right? Or, and when it comes to post-sale activities, all those after-sales services, right? Providing information to the customers, right? Delivering, right? All those things may be post-sale activities which happen along the supply chain. We also identified these as our downstream supply chain activities, right? So those things also are a part of electronic commerce. It's not just the actual buying and selling only, right? Then also next point says, when evaluating the strategic impact of e-commerce, right, on an organization, it is useful to identify opportunities for buy-side and sell-side e-commerce transactions as depicted in figure 1.5. Right? So when we are evaluating what sort of strategic impact this e-commerce has on the organization, right, you should be able to identify different opportunities that are there for an organization in terms of buy side and sell side, right? Now, if we move on to figure 1.5, right? Here you can see clearly there is a buy side indicated separately, and on this side sell side indicated separately, right? So there are different parties who are joining during the buy side phase of the business and buy side e-commerce phase of the business, as well as the sell side e-commerce phase, right? Now here you can see there are different shapes which have been used to identify these different parties. So we have intermediaries, we have suppliers, then we have suppliers, right? And if we move on to the sales side e-commerce, right, we have intermediaries once again, and then we have customers and customers. We have talked about this concept in MIS also, if you remember, right, when we talked about supply chain. So by looking at this, you can get an idea about what sort of e-commerce opportunities an organization can have, and in different locations of their supply chain, upstream and downstream supply chain, right? So the organization needs systems with different functionalities to accommodate transactions with buyers and with suppliers, right? So now you saw that in that figure 1.5, right, there are different parties involved when it comes to the e-commerce activities of an organization, right? So the organization needs to have different information system which provides special functionalities to accommodate transactions with buyers and suppliers, right? When selling a product, right? When buying a product, when buying raw materials from suppliers, when selling a product to customers, right? When exchanging an invoice with a customer, maybe, right? Or when sending a purchase order, right, to a supplier. So likewise, there should be different systems within the organization to accommodate different transactions that happens with buyers and suppliers of the organization, right? That is what this point talks about. Then once again, we come to buy-side e-commerce, right? So buy-side e-commerce here refers to transactions to procure resources needed by an organization from its suppliers. We have talked about e-procurement also, and buy-side e-commerce here talks about all those transactions which happen between our our organization, right? Considering organization and their suppliers, maybe raw materials, maybe parts, right? Maybe finished goods. All those transactions that happen to procure those resources needed by an organization from the supplier's end, right? Then sell-side e-commerce on the other hand, right? It refers to transactions involved with selling products to an organization's customers, right? Now in the figure 1.5 also you saw, in the sell-side e-commerce, you have intermediaries, you have customers, and you have customers, right? All the transactions involved with selling products to this side of your organization, right? You are selling finished goods to your customers, and also the after sales services that you provide, right? The delivery services that you provide. All these things involved in the sell side e-commerce aspect of an organization. Right? So I hope you are clear about the distinction between the buy side e-commerce and the sell side e-commerce of the organization, right? So if we once again move to this figure so that it's clearer to you, on here we have depicted the buy side e-commerce, where mainly we focus on procuring resources needed for the organization from our suppliers, and when it comes to the sell side, we focus on the selling aspect of the goods, after sales services, deliveries, and so on, right? So then we come to a new concept called social commerce, right? So the social commerce has become a term which is very important when it comes to the current context when we talk about e-commerce, right? So so this social commerce is a subset of e-commerce that uses online social networks to help in the buying and selling of goods and services. Now, perhaps you might have heard of this term social commerce earlier, perhaps you might not. But you have been engaging in this social commerce a lot, right? So this has become very important part of e-commerce in the current context, which is why we specially talk about this concept in this particular lecture, right? So this says it's a subset of e-commerce, right? It's a part of e-commerce. Here it uses online social networks to help buying and selling of goods and services. Can you give me an example of where you have used this kind of social commerce experience? By looking at the first point, any experience that you can relate where you have used social commerce? Yes. So we have 98 participants so far. Can someone tell a social commerce experience which you have personally experienced? So first of all, can you clearly see the slides I'm sharing? Are these slides clearly visible to you all? Yes. I think the silence means that they are visible to you all. So if you have any issue with viewing the slide, please let me know, right? Oshara, are you there? Can you see the slides clearly?
Yes, Miss, can see the slides.
All right, okay. So you experience no interruption in the middle, right?
No, Miss, can see clearly.
Right, good. Okay, so now we say that social commerce is a subset of e-commerce, right? So here we use social networks. Now look at the next point. Encourages participation and interaction of customers in rating, selecting and buying products, right? So now can you relate any such experience of social commerce that you had? Now we know that it's a subset of e-commerce. It uses online social networks to help in the buying and selling of goods and services. And also it encourages participation and interaction between customers. Yes, so any such experience which, yes, so Kason Randika says, Ikman. So now in Ikman, what happens? Do you use a social network or kind of experience for that kind of thing? Yes. Now here, what happens is there are several categories of social commerce, right? So you can use popular social networks such as maybe Facebook, right? Maybe Twitter, right? These kinds of networks, maybe you can use when it comes to this social commerce, right? So we call them social network driven social commerce, right? One type of social commerce. There what happens is you can use popular social media sites such as Facebook and Instagram or Twitter maybe, and they direct you to a merchant's website, right? They initiate the buying process. So through this social network, you are driven to a particular e-commerce site maybe. Now, maybe you have seen when you browse your social network connections, there are buttons called buy now, right? Maybe pop-up advertisements on social media, or maybe buttons like buy now, which directs you to a merchant's website sometimes, or which encourages you to buy a product maybe on a social media site itself, right? So likewise, those kinds of types of transactions, e-commerce transactions, they come under social commerce, right? And also there are other kinds of another type of social commerce, which is referred to as peer recommendations or user reviews, right? So what happens in this peer recommendation or user review type of social commerce is that they you recommend a particular e-commerce vendor, you recommend a particular seller in a digital platform via posting maybe reviews, right? Sometimes maybe sharing the posts of that particular e-commerce seller, right? So you have done these kinds of things a lot, right? Maybe personally. Now you may have seen there are certain businesses which encourage you to share their post, and for sharing those posts they give you certain rewards sometimes, right? They give you free offers, right? They give you discounts. So when you share them more, or when you provide positive recommendations or reviews more and more, right? When you give more peer reviews and recommendations, they give you such benefits. So those kinds of peer recommendations and user reviews are also part of this social commerce aspect, right? Then there is also another category called social buying, right? So what happens in this type is that usually when you buy from these kinds of e-commerce sites, so online vendors, right? Then you buy and you share your experience with other users, right? You can have chats. There are certain businesses which enable conversation between different customers, right? Different buyers, right? And they initiate a conversation between these customers so that they can have a better understanding about the user experience, about their buying experience. So this is also a type of social commerce, right? So all these types put together, right? There are so many other types as well. So just for your information, I related a few types to you. So all these things put together, we consider them as social commerce, right? So now I think you can understand how they encourage the participation and interaction of customers, right? They can rate the products they buy, the vendor, right? And this participation can occur on an e-commerce site or any third party site as well. So it can happen on the particular vendor's own e-commerce site, or maybe any third party site which hosts these types of e-commerce vendors, or which encourages this type of conversation between buyers sometimes. So this kind of recommendation systems, right? So this is the concept of social commerce, right? So moving on, once again in social commerce, the next point says, an important part of e-commerce for site owners. Why is it important? Since incorporating reviews and ratings into a site and linking to social networking sites can help understand customers' needs and increase the conversion to sale. So when you encourage these concepts like reviews, product reviews and ratings, and when you link that to particular social networking sites like Facebook, can you see when you go on certain sites, you can see the rating, the star rating, 4 stars, 5 stars, likewise you can see, right? So those ratings, and when you go on the site, first of all you are seeing a list of recommendations, right? So sometimes when before you buy this product, or before you experience this service, you may first try to look into this rating or the recommendation first to get an idea whether it's a good product or good vendor, right? So therefore it is very important it has become very important for e-commerce site owners, because it helps them to understand the customer's needs, and they can increase the conversion to sale. So if the customer posts a bad review maybe, right, they can understand what the customer is really looking for. If the customer is posting positive recommendations on a particular set of products, they can get an idea that the customers are looking for these kinds of products more, right? There's a positive feedback from customers to a particular set of products. So likewise, they can get a better idea about the customer's requirements. And also, it can increase the conversion to sale, right? Because it encourages another customer to initiate a purchase from their site by looking at these recommendations, reviews, and ratings, right? So that is the aspect of social commerce. So did you understand the concept of social commerce? Yes? Is that clear to you, or do you need further clarification? Yeah. So it seems like everyone is clear. Right. Yes. So we have a few messages also. Diniti says Instagram using sponsored advertisement. Yes. Then Oshara Karya Karavana says buying through pages on Instagram. Yes, very correct. So when you use platforms like Instagram to promote your business, right? So when you go on Instagram, you may have seen, right? Visit website or buy from this site. So likewise, those are social network site driven type of social commerce, right? So I think you have a clear idea about the concept of social commerce now, right? So what you have to understand is that this is a part of e-commerce, right? Okay, so moving on. Now you have an idea about what is e-commerce. Now what did we identify as e-commerce? All electronically mediated transactions between an organization and any third party that it deals with, right? So now we are going to talk about what is digital business, right? Now, what is the definition of digital business? Digital business is the conduct of key business processes through the use of internet technologies, right? That means now the key business processes within an organization are being transformed by using digital or internet technologies. If that is the mechanism used by a business, we call it a digital business. If the key business processes have been transformed by using digital or internet technologies. Right? So if we look at the next point, it elaborates more. What are these key business processes? Key business processes are the organizational processes or units in the center of the figure 1.5. So if we look at the figure 1.5 once again, right? Now here we identified when we talked about e-commerce, we talked about buy-side e-commerce and we talked about sell-side e-commerce. Now if we look at this center part, right? Here we have shown it organizational processes and functional units. So you identify the key business processes of the organization within this unit, right? So if these key business processes depicted within this area, within the organization are being transformed by using internet technologies, we call it what? Digital business. Now, if you look the figure here, the digital business encompasses buy-side e-commerce, sell-side e-commerce as well, right? That means, what do you think is the broader concept? Is it digital business or is it e-commerce? Yes? What is the broader concept? Digital business or e-commerce? Any idea? Yes? No idea. Right now, so if you look at this figure, you can see here the digital business contains this e-commerce, right? That means, what is the broader concept? Digital business is the broader concept, right? Yes. So we have several replies saying digital business is the broader concept. Yes, that is very correct. Right? So moving on, they include, what do we mean by the word they? The key business processes, right? So the key business processes include what kind of activities? Research and development, marketing, manufacturing, and inbound and outbound logistics, right? So all these, you have a very thorough idea about all these business activities and processes already, right? We have talked about these things in your MIS module and also in several other course modules, maybe like in operations management you may have learned, right? So these kinds of key business activities, if they are being transformed by using internet technologies, we call that type of a business a digital business, right? So what do you mean by inbound and outbound logistics? Can you remember we talked about this when it comes to supply chain management? What do you mean by inbound logistics? Yeah, we identified them as all activities, processes that are necessary to bring materials or parts or goods into the organization, right? We talked about that. And then outbound logistics is all those key processes and activities that we initiate to take them out of the business, right? So then the next point, the buy-side e-commerce transactions with suppliers and the sell-side e-commerce transactions with the customers can also be considered to be key business processes. So now not only these activities such as research and development, marketing, manufacturing, inbound logistics, and outbound logistics, right? So buy-side e-commerce transactions with suppliers, right? Where we procure materials from suppliers, right? Maybe we procure parts or goods from suppliers. And also sell side. We talked about examples of sell side transactions earlier. All those transactions are also can be considered as key business processes. So now I think it is more clearer to you. Not only these internal activities such as marketing, right? Also these buy side and sell side transactions are also considered as key business processes within an organization, right? So if we use internet technologies to transform any of these key business processes, right, we call that as a digital business, right? So now you may have heard the term e-business as well earlier, right? So what is the difference between e-business and digital business? Is there a difference as you feel? Any idea? Digital business and e-business. Are they same concepts or are they different? Yes, now digital business is actually same as e-business. We use this term digital because it better reflects the modern terminology, right? It better reflects the business applications and the research applications that are being done, right? That are being continuously used by the transformation that is happening within the industries using technology, right? So this term digital is being repeatedly or more frequently used by industries and research in the current context more when it comes to applying technologies to transform the industry or transform businesses, right? So therefore we use the word digital, or we use the term digital business instead of e-business in the current context, because the application of digital technologies to transform businesses is what we focus here more. So this term is being more and more stressed in the current context, so that is why we use the term digital business, right? So far, do you have any questions on what we have discussed? No questions? Right, so if there are no questions, do you need a small 2-3 minutes break and we continue, or shall I continue like this? Any comments? Yes? Shall we take a small break or shall we continue? Right, so one person says to continue. Are others okay with that as well? Right, okay. So it seems like we are getting more comments to continue with the lecture, right? So then we'll continue without a break, right? Right. Now we are moving to a new concept called intranets and extranets. Now we are still in the topic, what is the difference between digital business and e-commerce. So under that, now we are going to discuss about intranets and extranets, right? Right. So here, the first point says the majority of internet services are available to any business or consumer that has access to internet, right? That is clear, I think, for all of you. Any of these many of the internet services are available to a business or an individual user, an individual consumer who has access to internet. You can get the internet services, right, easily. So, however, many e-business applications that access sensitive company information require access to be limited to qualified individuals or partners. Right? Now, some e-business applications, right, within organizations, sometimes you may need to give access to sensitive information of the business only to employees of the organization only, or maybe to certain designated or qualified set of individuals of the organization only, right? And sometimes you may need to share some information of your organization with certain external parties, but not everyone, right? So when these kinds of requirements occur for a business, they use this technology called intranets and extranets. We have talked about this in MIS course as well. So I think you have a somewhat understanding about this concept. So if information is restricted to employees inside an organization, right? If information exchange is happening only within the organization boundaries, within designated employees, This is an intranet as shown in figure 1.6. We call it as an intranet, right? So, can you tell me any other features of intranet that you already know of? Because we have talked about this in the MIS lecture as well. So, any other features that you can think of? What is the technology we use for an intranet? Using what technology is intranet operating? Yes. What sort of technology do we use to create an intranet? Yeah. Now you don't remember, we talked of all these things in MIS. So it is the same as the internet, right? We use internet technologies to initiate the intranet, right? Same standards we use, right? Right. So if we look at figure 1.6, right? Now here, you can clearly see now 3 concentric circles. The innermost circle says intranet, right? Here, what is the description? Company only. That means this particular network is actually can be accessed by only parties that are internal to the organization, right? So here you can see the extranet, the next concept that we are going to talk about, right? So here, if access to an organization's web services is extended to some others, but not everyone. Now, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you might need to extend this access of information to some external parties of the organization, but not to everyone. You have to limit the access to some parties, right? This we call an extranet arrangement, right? If we, in other words, if I say an extranet is when you extend the internal network of an organization to selected or designated external parties or selected third parties, you call it an extranet. Once again, it uses the similar standards as the intranet, but you are extending the internal network to certain external parties, right? So if we look at this figure, it will be clearer to you. Now here, when it comes to the extranet, this intranet has been further expanded. Who can be included within this extranet arrangement? You can see suppliers, maybe customers, maybe collaborators, right? Now, for example, if you are doing collaborative development of a project, right? The designers that you use, those kinds of collaborators may be also a part of the extranet. So here the important thing is the organization can decide to which party they are going to extend this access, right? So they can decide whether we are going to give access to suppliers, whether we are going to give access to customers, right? Whether we are going to give access to the collaborators of our maybe product development parties, right? So likewise, they can decide. So how are they going to access this extranet? Usually, a particular login is given to these users, external users, right? They are given a username, they are given a password. So particular login is being given to them to access to this extranet, right? So if we look at the figure on this hand also, on the left hand side also, you can see now the intranet, internal communications that happen within marketing and IT department. There can be other departments as well, right? Now here we have only shown these two departments. And also in addition to this internal network can be extended to certain external parties, right? For marketing and purchasing purposes. Maybe for purchasing purposes, we may need to give a part of the access of the internal network to our suppliers, right? So that there's easy communication. When our stock levels go down, our suppliers can see, right? And they can respond fast. Or maybe to streamline the communication process between our suppliers and the organization. And maybe also our customer end also. It can be extended to our customer end also, right? The internal network can be extended to customers. How? How? Have you accessed then an extranet of a particular uh, vendor online? Do you have any experiences of accessing an extranet? Now you and as customers, we all are external parties to the organization, right? So have you experienced cases where you had access to an extranet arrangement? Yes. So now if you look at the next point, it clearly says whenever you log on to an internet service, such as that of an e-retailer or online news site, what is that? When you are logging on to a e-retailer or e-tailer site, or when you are referring to online news site, what is that? It is effectively an extranet arrangement. Right? Although the term is most often used to mean a business-to-business application. So although we think we highly use this term when describing business-to-business relationships such as between suppliers and organizations, right? Or intermediary partners and organizations, right? Still, customers accessing this type of network also can be referred to as an extranet arrangement, right? For example, if you are logging on to a buy maybe clothing, some clothing, right? Or maybe to inquire about some product, right? On a clothing website, right? So likewise, when you are logging on to a e-retailer site, you are accessing a part of their internal network. All the information they are not going to make available for you, but a part of their internal network, such as products, prices, right? Maybe some stock availability, some sites might share that, sometimes some sites might not share that. So likewise, they have the decision on what information they are choosing to share with their customers, right? So I hope you all are clear about this intranet and extranet arrangements, right? Right. Now moving on. Today, software services similar to Twitter and Facebook are being implemented within companies to achieve similar goals of information sharing and collaboration. Right? Now, not only this intranet and extranet, right? So popular social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook are also being implemented within companies to achieve these similar goals of information sharing and collaboration, right? It's very true, right? Now, an organization can have their own Facebook group, which is a closed group, which can only be accessed by the internal parties of the organization, right? So likewise, to achieve similar goals, social media sites are also being increasingly used by organizations when it comes to this intranet arrangements, right? Then enterprise social media software. So is that clear to you how social media platforms are used by organizations to achieve similar goals? You also have experienced this, no? Now, you might also be a part of such closed groups, right? Which are only selected members are given access to, right? So instead of these technologies such as intranet, today we increasingly talk about these social media sites also, because they also have changed or transformed this communication and collaboration processes for an organization, right? Which is why we have highlighted there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise them, right? Or you can either unmute and speak, or you can put them on the chat, right? Okay. So then moving on, enterprise social media software, right? So enterprise social media software systems used inside organizations to enable real-time collaboration between employees and other stakeholders such as customers and suppliers. Now there's this new concept called enterprise social media software as well. And now we talked about intranet, we talked about extranet, we talked about Twitter and Facebook or social media sites like that, which are also used to achieve similar information sharing and collaboration goals, right? Now, in addition, there's a concept called enterprise social media software, right? Now, they are referred to as, once again, information systems used inside organizations to enable the same purposes like earlier, real-time collaboration between employees and also other stakeholders such as our customers and our suppliers and maybe other trading partners and so on, right? So this is a new concept. For example, here we have related Yammer, right? Some of you might have heard of this application Yammer. Now, this is a popular enterprise social media software. Now, this is not like other public social media that we use, right? It is specific to the organization only, right? So, employees within the organization, when it comes to this Yammer, employees within the organization, no matter where they are located, right, they can easily collaborate to do projects on this particular social media software, right? So like in any other social media platform, they can have their own task list, like the to-do list they can organize within this social media software, and they can assign calendar notes, right? They can develop calendars, assign tasks to different people involved in the project, right? And they can assign notifications, right? So there's a small video clip which I will share with you, which shows the operation of Yammer, and you will have a better idea about how this enterprise social media software works. Right? Now, this particular Yammer site, this uses, or this Yammer software, this uses a network which enables internal collaboration. Right? It's focused on internal collaboration, but there are social media software which enable collaboration between other stakeholders as well. Right? Right. So was that video clear to you? Could you clearly see the video? Yes or no? Yes or no? Right. So I assume that the silence is means yes, right? So you saw in that video how this particular enterprise social media software developed by Microsoft, right, is being used by a business to collaboratively work on a project that they are organizing, right? So how convenient it has become for them to communicate between even different regions, different countries, right? So that is about enterprise social media software, right? So moving on to the next point, it says they support business processes such as customer service, supply chain management, and new product development. Now, these kind of enterprise social media software are also there, which can support functions like customer service, right? And supply chain management activities, and also new product development. Now, especially when we need to collaborate on a new product development, right? When different parties have to get together to collaborate, we have to get the designers from one end, and we have to have developers, and we have to have the creative workers on another end. Likewise, when you are working on collaborative projects, these kinds of uh, enterprise social media software are very useful, right? So collectively, these tools are sometimes referenced as Enterprise 2.0, right? So in the current context, we call all these tools put together as Enterprise 2.0, right? Because they enable this collaborative aspect, right? They enable these communications, two-way communications between different parties. So all these tools collectively, therefore, we refer to as Enterprise 2.0. Right? So now we have talked about intranets, we have talked about extranets, we have talked about how social media is being used to achieve collaboration and communication, information sharing. We have talked about how enterprise social media software is being used to enable collaboration between different parties, right? So all these technologies put together, we can understand that they help to enhance the information sharing, to facilitate the collaboration, right, to facilitate the communication between different parties that are connected to the business, right? I suppose you have a better idea about those technologies now, right? So moving on, now we are moving to different types of sell-side e-commerce, right? Now this is a new subtopic that we are going to relate, right? Now we have introduced you to the concept of e-commerce, we have introduced you to the concept of digital business, we have talked about different technologies that are used to enhance communication, collaboration, and information exchange, right? Now we are going to move on to different types of sell-side e-commerce. You already know what sell-side e-commerce is, right? Now we are going to look at different categories of this sell-side e-commerce, or different types of this sell-side e-commerce, right? So first take some time to go through this slide. All of you just do a quick reading of this slide.